Hi, everybody. If you are just joining us, we're going to get started here in a couple of seconds, but if you've got questions already, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. Should be a button at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit those now. And as soon as we get started, we will begin answering your questions. Okay, I feel like we should go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to ask our panelists to roll in. You guys want to turn your cameras on? There we go. There they are. All right, folks. This is a special session just for you. These are all professional advisors, academic advisors. They're here to answer any questions you may have about your major, about the academics at UC Davis. So feel free, if you've got them already, to start submitting your questions. And then we will start answering them. But I'm going to start just by introducing myself. I am Mark Von Cannon. I'm the Director of Student Recruitment and Career Development for the College of Letters and Science. I've been on campus for almost 19 years, and I've been with the college for almost 2 years. So then I think I will turn it over to Latia, who is, you can't see her, but she's here today. Latia, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the little gun rock symbol right now. So I will be behind the scenes answering questions for you. So I see some rolling in, and I'll get to them in just a second, but I'm Latia Graining. I work as the Assistant Director for International Academic Advising in the College of Letters and Science. I've been on campus for about 9 years. I've worked in the mathematics department and food science and viticulture. And so I'm here behind the scenes to answer your questions.
Okay. Mark Reyes, why don't you introduce yourself and then turn it over to someone else?
Yes, sir. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Reyes. I am the Assistant Director for First Year Advising in the College of Letters and Science. I'm also a UC Davis alum. I started here in 2002 and never left campus, so I've been around for quite some time.
Kate, do you want to go next?
I'll go ahead. Hi, my name is Kate Bostick. I'm a college advisor in Letters and Science. I work primarily with international students, but also with all students who come in. I've been on the Davis campus for almost 2 years now, and in the UC system at UC Berkeley and UCOP before that.
All right, Mr. Valenzuela, you're up next.
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Valenzuela. I'm an academic advisor in the Dean's Office and an FRS instructor. I have been at UCD for, almost 2 decades now. Prior to UCDA, I was at Cal Poly Pomona. I started off my career in the College of Engineering and Computer Science. I did some College of Engineering and Computer Science at Davis, and then migrated over to the College of Letters and Science. I am originally from Los Angeles. I was a first-generation college student, and I was also a transfer student. So I look forward to answering your questions.
Well, that's a great segue, answering those questions. So let's get to it. Changing majors. Can I start taking my major courses, or do I have to finish prereqs first? Do I need to take the prereqs at my college? So we often get questions about changing majors, and I know for transfer students, it's a little different than it is for first years. Mike, do you want to just start by addressing the typical transfer path if they want to change their major?
Sorry, I was muted.
There you go.
Sure. So I would say that most transfer students tend to have already decided what they're going to do once they arrive to us, but not all. And I even went through some metamorphosis myself as a transfer student. You cannot change majors until you have a UC GPA, so it would be after your first quarter at UC Davis. Let's see. You can, so a lot of our upper division courses have prerequisites. And for those of you who don't know what a prerequisite is, it's a course that you need to take in order to go on to the next course in the sequence. If there is not a prerequisite listed, or you have satisfied the prerequisite even at the community college, then you're eligible to take major or major related classes, even in your intended major, if in fact it is available for a given quarter. You don't necessarily need to take the prereqs at our institution. You may have, again, may have satisfied those prereqs at your community college. Let's see, did I answer the question? Anybody want to add anything?
I would just say that it's really important to meet with your major advisor, your intended major advisor, if you do want to change majors, and work with them as well on like an academic plan. So what classes you need to take and kind of what order you should take them in, so that you can kind of get a relationship with your major advisor and know what you need to do. And then you can meet with our office as well. You know, we do have a unit cap in our college. So as a transfer student, you're coming in with a lot of units. So you want to make sure that you use the rest of your units wisely and get the degree that you want.
I'd also add that, so recalling my transfer experience, I remember that the window is relatively tight. Unlike a first year student straight out of high school, where they have a lot of time to explore and introspect, our time as transfer students is much, much tighter. And so the sooner you get to your final destination in terms of major, the better it would be for you, I'm afraid.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kate. Mark, how about when can a transfer student start talking to their academic advisor?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Kate kind of touched on this earlier, but I just want to start by explaining the advising structure. So the three of us are all from the college dean's office, and so we do advising on college level requirements. I see a question in the chat about a GETSI. So things like that our office will deal with. But because we are so large, we have major advisors attached to each individual major. And so when you come to Davis, you'll be working with both offices as your primary advising offices. Now, for all of our incoming transfer students, they will be meeting with their major advisors beginning around June 8th. So the SIR deadline for everyone is June 1st. And so we are going to then begin our official advising appointments for all incoming transfer students. And again, you'll be meeting with your major advisors, so you can get those specific questions answered. If you do have questions about possibly switching majors, you may need to reach out individually, but just as a heads up, they may or may not be able to accommodate you in this sort of window of time prior to registration. But definitely try to reach out and see if you can get some additional information if you're planning to make that change.
Mark, do you also want to talk about the I get to part of Aaron's question?
Yeah, so it looks like, so if you have a full certified IGETC, what that satisfies here at Davis, and particularly in the College of Letters and Science, is the general education requirements for the university, our college language requirement if you're pursuing a Bachelor of Arts degree, or if you're pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree, our natural science and mathematics breadth requirements. So those three things could be satisfied with a full certified IGETC. And I preach this every year. Make sure that we receive the IGETC. If you completed it, awesome. Well, you need to have it sent. And my experience, most community colleges will not just send that automatically with your transcripts. You usually have to request that as a separate thing. So you can check with your advisor and check with us in your first, over the summer or in your first quarter here to make sure that's been received. And we can make sure that, all your degree requirements that those would cover will be checked off. For those of you who maybe have a partial IGETC, definitely check in with our office to see how you can fulfill that. There are pathways for wrapping up that last course or two if you had a partial IGETC, and that would be something you check in with our office on specifically.
Great. Mike, what about prereqs? So if a student's coming in with a declared psych major, but maybe they're not seeing their coursework done in our system, right? Which is typical. Do you want to just talk about what that looks like, what that process is, transcripts, the whole thing for that? Great.
So first and foremost, you have to make sure that you get in a completed set of your transcripts to our admissions office. Oftentimes students will send them too early, and like the last semester or summer prior is missing from that set of transcripts. So make sure that once everything is posted on that community college transcript, you have it sent into our admissions office. Our admissions office is the unit on campus responsible for receiving and doing initial evaluation of all transfer work. So they actually decide what gets to come into the university and what does not. Also remember that, just as a side note, there's a 105 lower division unit limitation. So anything you have past that will not receive unit credit, though you may still receive subject credit for it. So you can use it for things like prerequisites and satisfying requirements, nonetheless.
Great.
And sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add, so there's a second part to that question about registering for classes. Mark, do you want to, I know we talked a little bit about Aggie advising, but do you want to talk about the whole orientation process, the different steps, and when registration is as a part of that?
Sure. So again, I mentioned the SAR deadline, and then June 8th is when Aggie advising will start. Appointments for incoming transfer students will occur on, let me double check my dates here. I get my August 10th and August 17th. So all transfer students will receive a pass time, which is basically a window of time for your registration on one of those 2 days. And then following those 2 days, you'll have some time to make some schedule adjustments, or if you happen to miss your initial pass time for any reason, you can still go into the system and get those classes registered. Now, up until that point, and this is something you'd work with your major advisor on, is actually selecting your courses to build your schedule. So in our schedule builder system, you can go in and save classes, look up what's going to be offered in the fall quarter, and start actually seeing what those will look like in terms of meeting times, final exams. So kind of get an idea of how your schedule is going to be balanced. The other thing I should mention too is that, so I saw a question in the Q&A about being concerned about class availability. Definitely monitor those seats, but also know that a lot of really high demand seats, we do reserve certain spots for incoming students, both freshmen and transfers. So to make sure the process is equitable, only a certain number of seats in a given course might be released for each of those sessions. So if you're on the 17th in that afternoon window, you're going to get the same amount of seats available for you as the person who maybe went earlier in the quarter.
Great.
And sorry, the other piece too is, so once registrations happen, is actually Aggie orientation. And our plan initially was to have an orientation week. So there would be a schedule of events for students. Now, obviously with what's going on, there might be some changes. So, keep an eye on the orientation website for more information on what that will look like, but we definitely really want to encourage everybody to attend those events. Some of them may be virtual. We're just going to have to wait and see, but it's a great opportunity to sort of get to know campus and get to meet some other students as well. So I'd encourage you to participate in that.
Mr. Foncannon, if I may, go back to the previous question for a quick bit. I just wanted the students to have a sense of how the process works once their transcripts arrive on campus. And so once the admissions office decides what gets to come onto campus, then we get a credit summary in each of the dean's offices on campus, and we go through that to figure out where we're going to place the credit, and we try to draw as much credit from the transcript as is possible. That process happens all summer long, and I will send my transfer students a ton of messages about getting that IGETC in. So like Mark did, I want to just make another plug for getting that IGETC in as early as possible. I think it's really important. And once we have completed our evaluation process in the dean's office, you will be notified from our system that it has been completed, and it'll also tell you where to go to have a look at it. Somebody had a follow-up question about the transcripts being sent directly to Davis from community college. So right now, as we sit, we do not have a mechanism or the ability to accept an electronic transcript. We're working on it, but we're not there yet. And so for the time being, we got to do it old school. You've got to have that paper copy, official certified copy of the transcript sent directly from the community college directly to our admissions office. I hope that answers the question.
And as far as I know, just to add on to that, Mike, the admissions office is being more lenient. Hi, Sam. The admissions office is having to be more lenient on the deadline for transcripts. So while we want them as early as we can, and if you can shoot for that deadline, but it won't affect your admission if they come in late. So hi, Sam. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes,
and then we'll go into taking more questions.
I'm so sorry, I was having a few technical issues. My name is Samantha Duesdeker. I'm an academic advisor in the College of Letters and Science. I was a history major at UC Davis, also a transfer student as well too. So very excited to talk with you all today.
Great. All right. Hey, Kate. So there was a question in here about what a first semester might look like if somebody is thinking about double majoring. How many units should an entering transfer student enroll in? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. So I'm looking at it. Courses. So for your first quarter, there's a minimum of 12 units. So you need to be enrolled 12 units to be full-time. 12 to 15 units would be a good first quarter kind of schedule. It's always good to maybe go a little bit lighter for the first quarter, since it can be a big transition coming from community college to UC Davis. So you don't want to overload yourself too much. And if it goes really well the first quarter, you can always add more units, in subsequent quarters. If you're going to be double majoring, you want to meet with those major advisors, or you want to look at the guide for what classes you should be taking for them. And generally no more than 1 to 2 upper division courses in the subject area. I don't know if that answers the question, or if anyone else has anything to add.
Anybody else? No? All right. So as expected, there are some questions about what fall is going to look like, whether it's going to be in person or on Zoom. Aaron, that's a great question, whether or not science-led courses or like maybe our STEM courses or lab courses are going to be in person or on Zoom. So unfortunately, we don't know the full answer to that, although I think we're getting close to an answer. What I do know is that all of our admitted transfer students are going to be notified today, probably in the next 40 to 45 minutes. You're going to get a message from the chancellor today that explains some of what's going on, some of the decisions that we're making, how we're coming to those decisions. So some of those kinds of questions will be answered in that message from the chancellor. But if I were a betting person, and I'm not, my guess is we may have a combination of both in-person and remote classes. So what I will add though is I interviewed a student yesterday who is a chemistry student, and her lab classes, she said, are actually quite challenging, and not challenging because of the format being that they're remote, but she's still learning a great deal in her lab class. So thought I would plug that. Does anybody else want to add to that question?
Yeah, I was just gonna to mention, this is something that everybody again has a lot of questions about, and I think our hope is to have some components in person as much as possible. I know the UC. I think the perception is that the UC needs to make a decision, which is true, but also a lot of it is dependent on sort of the local and state guidelines too. So having, well, the UC Davis may want to have an in-class lab component. A lot of that might be dependent on how that's actually going to function, what the guidelines and are from the state and the county in terms of what we need to do to make those possible and safe for everyone. So yeah, all I can say is hurry up and wait, just like us. So
yeah. There's another question similarly about remote, and specifically the question is the use that UC campuses will be open in the fall. Apparently that was on the news. I did not see that on the news today. What happens if students aren't able to come back to the US? Does it affect their admission? And the answer to that is absolutely not. We fully understand that there are circumstances where students won't be able to make it back to campus or make it to campus as a new student, visa issues and things like that, or health, whatever it might be. So we are planning for a certain number of our courses, even if students are back on campus, we are planning for a large portion of our courses to be offered with a remote option. So we will at least have remote option for students that might be in that situation. Work study, 12 units. Does anybody want to talk about, I know we talked about 12 units being minimum for full-time. Does anybody know if that affects work study, or is that a good question for financial aid? So
definitely a good question for financial aid, because that's the office work study we'll go through. I can actually share my experience as a student. I had a work study my first quarter here at Davis. Now, granted, that was as a freshman and nearly 2 decades ago. I was working about 12 to 14 hours per week at the library, the law library actually on campus. And I found it really manageable. You know, I had worked summer jobs and also did school as well. So I kind of understood how that process worked a little bit. You know, one of the things, and you'll probably hear Mike talk about this too, is how you treat your school and your classes like a job. You know, your hours, you plan around that, you plan for all the different hours that go into your time. I think it was definitely possible. Now, if you're working a large number of hours, maybe you're not work study, or maybe you're one of our transfer students who has a part-time job. If you do work over 30 hours officially, you can petition to go part-time for one or more of your quarters. So if that's a need, you know, the university recognizes that student situations, particularly financial situations at this time, are different. There are different accommodations for working up to a near full-time employment.
I can chime in on that as well too, Mark. I was a transfer student at UC Davis, like I mentioned, and I did work on campus also at UC Davis School of Law, not in the library. But when I was working on campus, one of the things that I really enjoyed about on-campus work is that it's restricted, right, in terms of hours. So usually most of these offices are open 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, something to that effect. And in that regard, you know, my evenings and my weekends were free for doing my schoolwork. So I think on-campus jobs are a really great opportunity. Typically you are looking around 12 to 15 hours, probably not as much as a lot of transfer students are used to working when we were transfer students and maintaining almost a full-time job with our course load. But definitely a great experience and a good opportunity to get connected with campus and to build a really solid network while you're here.
Great.
And
sorry,
may I add?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Of course.
Sorry. And as Mark said, if you're not working a full-time job elsewhere, then you should be considering UC Davis your full-time job. And a full-time job at most places is 40 hours a week. So that is really the kind of time we're talking about to devote to your studies at UCD. As a transfer student, I also got an on-campus job. We were limited to 20 or fewer hours. And so I tried to work the max only because as first-gen student, I needed to work the max to be able to financially survive. I had to become a shrewd manager of my time. So if you haven't practiced time management, and I'm talking about on paper time management, then you should get ready to do that before the start of the fall quarter. That's the only way you're going to get those 40 hours in and work a side job, even if it is on campus.
Mhm.
Can I say something as well, Mark?
Of course.
I want to chime in. Well, first of all, I also had a work study job on campus at the law library, so that's weird.
Wow. That
Um,
is weird.
but also kind of what Sam was saying, that a work study job can be a good way to kind of build a network and meet people, kind of make a community. And just as a transfer student, that's really important. You're only here for a short period of time. Now, work study is definitely not the only way to do that. Many ways to do that, but it's something to consider. So other ways would be like an internship or a club, joining some sort of activity or group, but really making that a priority so that you can get a good community support system on campus.
Great. So there's a question about studying abroad. Did any of you do that when you were undergrads? No.
I did.
So, oh,
Yeah.
all right, Mr. Reyes, do you want to
Uh,
talk about studying abroad and maybe how a transfer student, how that might be possible for a transfer student, especially a chemistry student?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. Now, for a transfer student, I would say start researching it now, right?
Mhm.
Like literally right now, go on your computer and start looking after this session. Now, obviously, there are a lot of other factors going on right now, so planning further ahead is probably more ideal. But our campus offers more or less 3 different types of main programs. There's what we call our UC Davis summer and quarter abroad programs, which run in the summer, fall, winter, spring quarters. And those are programs where the students will essentially go and study with a faculty member in a host country. Now, the nice thing about these is that they are UC Davis course equivalents. So for instance, as a chemistry major, I know we offer, or we have offered in the past, a organic chemistry series in Nottingham, England. So students would actually go to England as part of the study abroad program and take their major related courses. The same is true for other majors as well. Now, you don't have to study in just your major. If you're wanting to do just the experience, or you maybe have some GE courses that you need to do, you could look at some of our other programs. The other main program is the UC Education Abroad program, which is run through the UC Central Campus. And they basically partner with all of these institutions around the world. So I think it's over 200 countries we have locations and universities. And so this is where you're more of a true sort of exchange student experience, right? You go and study at a host institution with their faculty, with their students, their grading system. So it's a whole different experience. I personally did a summer in England, in Southern England and Sussex, and I did it through the UC EAP program. So I studied at the University of Sussex with their English faculty, which was a really cool and unique experience. Now, I took the easy way out. I went to an English-speaking country. Of course, the other factor is, do you speak the language? Do you have any experience with the language? It's not always required of the program, but sometimes it's helpful just to kind of get around. So take those things into consideration. If you're a transfer student and you're looking at maybe doing it in your second year, there's summer sessions in between. Also, when I did mine was in between my junior and senior year, but my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, did it her senior year. And so that was basically her capstone experience. She had done all of her major requirements, everything else. And then she went to study in Spain and did a Spanish art and architecture, got to go see all the cathedrals and art. It was really cool. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you. What do we know about doing research or working in labs in the fall? Does anybody, so I can speak a little bit to that, but does anybody have anything to add about, well, how about I just start by saying that I know that the labs, that research on campus started again. So I think we're in phase, I don't know what phase we're in. We're in phase 1 or 2. 2, thank you, Sam. We're in phase 2. So research has started up again on campus. Now, they are using local guidelines, right, for safety. So that's certain meters apart, certain feet apart, those kinds of things. So research is happening. Whether or not that will happen in the fall it's really up to kind of where things land again in the fall. If things are trending the way that they are, we might see more students in labs in the fall. But if we see a spike, that may have to be brought back. So we're having to be very flexible. But I think getting research experience or an internship experience, well, getting an internship experience could be different, but definitely getting research experience on campus could be possible. But again, we just don't know. Internship is different because an internship could be remote. It could be virtual. You can get hands-on experience through an internship and also be just like the 5 of us that you see are doing from your own home. And a lot of our students are participating in internships in that way. So internships are happening. I just can't say for sure what lab experience, research experience will look like. Does anybody have anything to add before we maybe move on? No? I know it's that question might also still be covered in that communication you're going to get today. In fact, I think it probably is. So more will be in that message that you're going to get later today from the chancellor. Oh yeah, so the same question about can you work in the lab in fall semester? Possibly. I think students are, but a lot fewer are right now. So, all right, I think that takes care of the questions in the Q&A. Keep asking them if you have them. Before any other questions come in, does somebody want to talk about changing major? So what that process actually looks like. It's a question we often get. So what the process for changing a major looks like. Does somebody want to take that?
I can take that, as I,
Thank you,
up
Sam.
until very recently, was processing those in the office. So a change of major petition is something that will have to wait until after your fall quarter at Davis. We do need to see that you are in good academic standing, so meeting the good academic standing would be a GPA for the quarter above a 2.0 before you can change your major. Especially if you are declaring a major as a transfer student, a lot of things that help in that process is meeting with the new major advisor, or if you're fully leaving the College of Letters and Science, meeting with the college as well too. Creating an academic plan online to see how many units you plan to complete in the course of that new major, or if you're adding another major as well too. So just in total, what your plan is to finish your degree in your remaining 2 years or however long you're going to be finishing. Then from there, that petition is submitted online and it goes to the various either major departments or the college department before it's approved. Then it will be updated in your student record and you will have a new major with UC Davis. But it is something that that's a nice part of not being able to change in fall, is you hopefully get an opportunity to meet with each major department before you declare it online.
So I know certain majors are a little different in terms of the change requirements.
Yes, as well too, yeah.
Do you want to just briefly talk about what that might look like?
Yeah, there are some majors on campus as well that are impacted, meaning that they may have multiple requirements that they want you to fulfill before you are able to change your major. So they may say you have to complete X, Y, and Z classes with a C or better grade before you're able to change. If some of those courses are sequence-based, then it could take a little bit longer for you to change your major, declare your major, also based on availability as well too. It does not mean that you can't continue to work with those departments as you pursue that new program. It just means that you officially won't have changed it in the system yet.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Perfect.
And Mark,
yeah, please.
Sorry, I just want to add on a couple of things too. So I see the comment in chat about how you can change your major. Now I do want to manage expectations a little bit too. So you're coming in as a transfer student. The assumption is that you could complete your program within 2 years.
Mhm.
If you are thinking about switching majors or even adding a second major or a minor, you want to make sure that you're accounting for how long that may take and doing, again, that research starting like right now. Because time is not unlimited, and you want to make sure that you're making those decisions with kind of all the information at hand. Is this something that you can complete in a reasonable amount of time? And then also, our college does have a unit limit in terms of how many units you can go up to. So starting a whole brand new major from scratch, depending on how many units, may not be feasible, or it might. You'd really have to do that digging now. You wouldn't want to start that in, say, your second year and then find out that your plans aren't going to really come to fruition. So like I said, start that research now.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
So there's a question about planning your coursework, online education planning, and I'm assuming what that question is, maybe how do we plan for courses? How do we plan for what we might take quarter to quarter? So I know we covered orientation and Aggie advising, but let's, in case Laura is new to this session, let's maybe take a second just to refresh people about Aggie 101, Aggie advising, Aggie orientation. But then does somebody also want to talk about some of the tools that are available, schedule builder, those kinds of things? Who wants to take that? Kate?
Sure.
Thanks, Kate.
I think so. My understanding of this question is like, how do you plan out the classes that you're going to take for your major? Coming in as a transfer student, you're likely, if you have your IGETC, you're done with your GEs. If not, you're probably pretty close to being done with your general education. So really what you're doing is taking the classes that you need for your major and meeting any like unit requirements that we have at the college. So there's a tool on Oasis called an academic plan. So that's something that you would kind of work with your major advisor to plan out all the required courses that you have for your major, look at when you would take them, like what quarters would you take them, maybe what sequence would you take them in. So that's a really helpful tool. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add about the academic plan, but I think that's what we have for an online ed plan.
Yeah, I can add a little bit extra onto that. So it is something that the way that you can use that tool in Oasis for the online education plan or planning your degree is it'll filter by classes and availability. It'll filter by units. So you get an idea of what you're taking and when you're taking it. It'll have a plan for all of your quarters, including summer. So it's something that if you have access to Oasis now, you can go in and kind of play around with it. It's under the Forms and Petitions tab. Another way to get an idea of a plan for your major, if you haven't met with anybody yet, is use the course catalog. It's one of the best resources that we have. If you just Google UC Davis catalog and you go under the major section, you can look at all of the hundreds of majors that are offered on campus, the prerequisite courses, the upper division options, and it'll give you an idea of, okay, what does this major entail? What do these classes look like? And then you can start narrowing down, where do I want to put them? How do I want to order my time? And how many upper division classes do I want to take each quarter, etc. So those two resources as a transfer student, probably the best tools you can take advantage of. Advising is going to come in great too if you meet with your major advisor, through Aggie advising to confirm that everything looks okay, but they would love it if you have that filled out already, I bet. So I would highly recommend taking advantage of those resources now, since they're online and you should have access to them.
Great. Hey, Mr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir.
I know you work with a lot of students through your seminars.
Yes, sir.
How about any of those students who want to go into business, or onto grad school? Do you know of any resources for them for GRE prep or any other kind of test prep?
Right, and I saw the question about a course for GRE prep. So, and maybe somebody else has knowledge of this, but I don't have any specific knowledge of an actual course in existence at UC Davis explicitly for the purpose of GRE prep. Now, we do have a pre-graduate school advisor on campus whose sole capacity is devoted to getting students ready for grad school. We do have seminars and workshops on GRE prep. And we also have units and organizations on campus that do support GRE prep, like the McNair program and the likes. But we do have the ability to guide our students into the graduate school path if they so choose. And in fact, I actively encourage all of my students to think about that early on. And I love that somebody asked that question now, because now is when you should really be thinking about it. The window for transfer students is tight. So you want to make sure, and just a few pieces of advice, if I may. You want to make sure, first and foremost, that your grades are up there. Love it or not, that's the system that we're in. And so the higher GPA gets the most opportunity. And that's just all there is to it. Secondly, is you want to get prepared for the GRE. And so taking a prep course, if you can afford it, because some of them are pretty expensive, I think is a great idea. That might be a good idea for a graduation gift. Now that I think about it, that just came to me. Okay. Likewise, you want to get a very good idea of where it is that you're going in a graduate studies program. And to that end, you also want to make sure that to the best of your ability, and I know this sounds corny, but I preach it all the time, you want to make sure that you have locked onto your passion. And so as a transfer student, you should be pretty close to that moment now. So you want to make sure that you lock onto that passion so that you know exactly what you need to do for the rest of your undergrad career at Davis and then in graduate school to take you to that passion. I like it when my students, my undergrads, explore even the vast array of resources we have on our own campus. Simply meaning we have faculty all over campus that are conducting enormous amounts of studies and research. It'd be a great opportunity for you to start getting connected with them as early as possible so that you can have a really good idea if a lab graduate experience and a lab professional life is for you. If you're interested in, as an example, a more statistical existence, you can do that. And might I add that you're going to need at least 3 solid letters of recommendation. And so those have to come from your faculty. And again, unlike being somebody straight out of high school, you have to foster and grow those relationships with faculty almost instantaneously, because in about a year and some down the road, you're going to be asking for letters of rec. And so you want to make sure that you have good, strong working relationships with your faculty. Does that go in the direction?
Can I make a quick plug for OEOES?
Would you please?
So we actually have this really great department on campus. The acronym is OEOES. It's the Office of Educational Opportunity and Support Services. I hope I got that correct. They were previously student academic success when I was a student, so I still mentally refer to them as that. But they have a listserv you can sign up for that probably has questions about the GRE, maybe an online like group that you can get connected with. They do free webinars, I think probably webinars now, but usually workshops on how to apply for graduate schools, whether it's the GMAT, the GRE, the LSAT. And also too, they do workshops on how to ask instructors for letters of recommendation and how to build yourself professionally to engage in networking on campus. A massive, huge resource, wealth of information, wonderful people over there. I would definitely recommend taking advantage of it. They also do half-hour appointments as well too, and they hold the graduate fair on campus. So when I was a student, I took advantage of them. I think they're a really great opportunity if you can do that. Also, I know thinking about grad school may seem kind of early, but letting your advisors know now that that is your plan, so they can also kind of align your plan for graduation and your academic plan with your academic goals is really helpful. So go look up OEOES UC Davis. They're a really great resource.
We have a few questions. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to add, And speaking of OEOES, that is where the pre-law, pre-grad school advisor is located. Let's see if I'm remembering her name correctly. Dr. Chloe Gall Scoville, did I get that right? Gallscoville. I'm sure I got that right.
You did.
Olympic champion.
I know,
You
right?
did, you did.
She is the pre-law and pre-grad school advisor. Great person to work with. You should connect with her.
Before we get off that topic, does anybody want to talk about the health science advising office? And I don't even think I got the name of that right.
HPA.
Yeah, HPA. We love our
HPA.
acronyms at UCD.
Yes,
Professions
we definitely
advising.
do.
That has also gone through some name change iterations,
Yeah,
I think.
everything has.
Who wants to talk about HPA? Mark?
Yeah, I can start with that, and feel free to jump in, anybody else. So I'd say it's probably one of the most robust offices on campus. We have a lot of students who are interested in pre-med, pre-health, and it covers a pretty broad range. So everything from dentistry to optometry, physical health, nursing. So anybody who's interested in going into one of these health-related fields can meet with our advisors in the health professions office, advising office, to talk about planning what courses you should be taking here at Davis that maybe you haven't completed your community college that are prerequisites. There's no official pre-med track at UC Davis. It really is really connecting with those HPA, with the HPA office to make sure that you're taking the courses that would serve as prerequisites for a lot of different programs, or maybe you're looking at a very specific program and you want to know how that process works. They can guide you through step by step all of these different pieces. So it's a really robust program offering. If you're pre-med or considering any kind of health professions, definitely check them out.
I would also do a small plug as well too.
Please.
So they do a lot of really unique things in their office. They do mock interviews as well for a lot of these med programs require an interview for you to go to the medical school, whether it's veterinary school, dental school, like medicine, things like that. So they do mock interviews. They also start working with students from their first year all the way through their graduation, transfer students as well too. They do a ton of free workshops. They invite schools to come and talk to students. They have their own space, which is really amazing. And they do little like presentations and things like that. They actually had our office come visit once, and we were all just blown away by how amazing and, like Mark said, robust their program is. So if you're interested in health professions advising at all, HPA is their website. And also they have a listserv. You'll hear that term come up a lot. A listserv is basically an email access list that you'll get signed up on if you go to their website, and you can request to be informed about what they're doing regularly or what kind of things that they have going on in their department. So you'll get newsletters or emails about people visiting or information sessions. So they have their listserv just the same as the pre-graduate and graduate advising office does as well. So see if any of those are of interest to you and sign up for them.
One more plug for HPA. As you can tell, we like them. They host a massive pre-med conference where thousands and thousands attend. And so if you are even remotely interested in a health career, you should attend that conference.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for humoring me on that one. I wanted to just give them a plug. So what's the difference between declaring a major and declaring a minor? When do you have to do it if you're going to declare a minor?
Yeah, I saw that message pop up, so I wanted to answer that because I kind of mentioned minor programs earlier. I didn't really elaborate. So your major obviously is the field of study that you're doing here at Davis, but students can opt to minor in a number of our departments or special programs. And typically a minor in terms of the number of units that are involved is much smaller. So I would say the average minor is anywhere from 20 to 24 upper division units. So those are more of your advanced level classes. Now, sometimes there are prerequisites that go into that. So if you are majoring in, say, a STEM field, but you're interested in minoring in a non-STEM or humanities field, there might be some lower division courses that you may need to take, but it would be far less than what the normal prerequisites would be for most majors. So a major here at Davis, at least in our college for context, usually somewhere around 20 preparatory lower division courses and anywhere from 40 to 50 upper division depth subject matter courses. So relative to a major, it's much less. So if there is a secondary field that you're interested in, definitely check that out. And also look at the list of minors, because there are some that wouldn't necessarily pop out to you other than looking at that list. So things like our professional writing minor, our education minor, human rights. These are not typical departments, but they are more kind of unique programs that you can't really find a major in. And some are more geared towards professional. So like the education minor, for instance, if you are thinking about maybe going into teaching or K through 12 or post-secondary education, these are good opportunities to get a little bit of experience as an undergrad before moving on. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else had anything to add.
I was just,
Oh.
go ahead. I was just going to touch on when you declare it. That was all.
I was just going to say that as well.
Yeah, okay.
I'll let Kate take that. Or
go for it, Kate. Go for it, Kate.
So the minor, different than your major, whereas your major you declare as early as possible. The minor, you're going to really take all the classes that you need for your minor, or at least be enrolled in the last units that you need for that minor before you submit the minor declaration, which is another petition on OASIS. So OASIS has everything. So I really recommend checking that out. And you can meet with the minor advisor as well and kind of go over the classes you're going to take for that. And you want to make sure that your major advisor knows, because you can't overlap more than one class between your major and your minor. But the minor, really, you want to be mostly done with that before you submit the minor declaration. And then you submit it likely the quarter before you graduate, but at least at the beginning of the quarter in which you will graduate.
That was all I had.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm using my spacebar to unmute, and then I realized I was on a different window and it wasn't working. Mike, looks like you wanted to answer the question about taking a community college course, a fun course in the summer.
Yes,
did you have advice on that, or?
I do, actually, and that is, if you want to take it for fun, take it. I would say a couple of caveats to that. One is, if you are at the 105 lower division max, know that the unit value will not come in, but you can still use it for prerequisite credit. You can still get other subject credit to satisfy any requirements. You just may not get the unit value. The other thing I was going to add is make sure you get a good grade. Don't get a bad grade, because you will need to submit that to admissions when it's all done. You will be surprised how many students get admitted and then don't do well in their final term. Let that not be you, please. That's it.
So we do have a couple more questions in here about transcripts, and I'm actually looking for a and I know you said this earlier, Mike, that admissions is working on doing a online transcript service. And yes. I thought I saw something about that recently, that may be an update for that, but I'm not finding it.
I think, Mark, I may be thinking about the same thing you're thinking about, and that was simply to say that we are working on an online or an electronic solution. We just don't have it yet. And so for now, we default to old school, which is the paper copy. So for now, paper copy, we hope to have an electronic solution very soon. They literally are working on it as we speak right now.
Yes. Yeah. What are some of the questions so I think that basically takes care of the questions in the box. What are some of the things that when you see transfer students, what are some of the common questions or maybe common concerns that transfer students have when you see them? Does anybody want to address that?
I can answer this a little bit.
Okay.
So when I was a transfer student, one of the things that I did not know, and maybe this is just me back in the day, I did not know that my GPA started over at Davis.
Right.
So I think that's an important thing to take note of, you know, when you, in terms of thinking about your cumulative GPA and what you've achieved so far. Your graduating GPA will start over at Davis, right? And so you'll have a UC Davis GPA when you graduate. So you've heard us talk a lot about emphasizing that and what that looks like. Just know that your units and your requirements are going to transfer in, but your GPA that you graduate with is the one that you achieve at Davis. So I wasn't aware of that when I was a transfer student. It was an important component of me applying to graduate school as well too. So keep that in mind. And that was one of the biggest things that tips that I get or questions that I get from transfer students.
I have a response, and
Great.
that is that given that most California community colleges operate on a semester system, which is typically up to 18 weeks long, you are coming to the UC Davis quarter system, which is 10 weeks long with an 11th week of finals. And so some folks find it lightning fast compared to what they were used to in the past. So some of my students, transfer students, struggle with shifting gears into the quarter environment. Again, I go back to time management. It is crucial that you put yourself on some form of time management plan. And remember, that's got to be on paper or digitally. You've got to have a copy somewhere. If it's in your head, it's a thought. It's not a plan. You've got to get a plan down to ensure that you hit the requisite number of hours devoted to your studies each and every week. And let's see, early on as a semester community college student, I could get an assignment, and I'm just speaking from my own experience. I can get assignment and you kind of cruise on it for a few weeks and then get around to getting to it and then still do relatively well. If you do that at UC Davis in this quarter environment,
it's not going to go well.
It'll be the academic death of you. It will not go well. So as soon as you get your assignments, as soon as you know what they are, I urge you to get to work on them immediately. UC Davis is not a last-minute institution. All-nighters will not save you at our school. You should never attempt. That's all.
Okay, I found the thing about the transcript. So we do have an online resource. You can submit them electronically. It's parchment.com. www.parchment.com.
Totally
Yes.
Sweet. Yes, we got it.
Yep.
I'm taking note of that as well.
You can submit your transcript. Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Another last tip that I had that I noticed when I was a transfer student and also having done a graduate degree at a CSU in terms of difference. I don't think I fully understood when I was a transfer student what a research institution means in terms of classwork and what that looks like as a student. In a lot of cases, what that means is sometimes the material that you're learning in class can be very separate and distinct from what you're learning outside of class. Because what you're doing is you're delving into research and articles or topics that maybe reinforce what you're learning in class, but maybe don't get discussed by the instructor at times. So just remember that every piece of material, that everything that you receive from an instructor is purposeful, and that you should be reading all of that, doing all of the work outside of class, because some of those concepts and ideas you may be tested on, but maybe haven't been reviewed or discussed in class at times. So that we are a research-based institution. This is research is expected of students in our classes. So just keep that in mind as well. And I see Mike or Mark might have something to chime in on that as well.
Yes, most definitely. Actually, you
I just wanted to hold that thought, Mike. We're at 4 o'clock. And I know a couple of our panelists can stick around for a few more minutes, which we will do. And if you're in the session and you still have questions, we're going to stick around for a couple more questions. But I think some of us have appointments. Kate, you have a 4 o'clock appointment, right?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye, Kate.
Bye.
All right. So we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Mike, don't lose your thought.
I'm losing it.
No, don't lose it. Don't lose it. You got to write it down.
Research-based institution. Research-based institution.
Got it. Thank you. Got it.
But before we get there, because we still have about 14 people still in this session, I want to say we are recording this, and it is going to link on the website that we had it on the college website, lettersandscience.ucdavis.edu. It will be linked on our Aggie Experience page, but we'll send out a follow-up email too with the links to a couple of these sessions that we've had. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Mike, your thoughts on research institution?
Yes, sir. And because we are a research institution, there is a vast amount of research opportunities, unlike many other places, many other institutions in the country. In fact, UC Davis prides itself on its ability to give undergraduates a research experience. And so I encourage you all to immediately get to work on taking a look at faculty and their pages. Every faculty member on campus has a page. So go to their website, take a look at the research that they are currently conducting. Cold call. Feel free to work up the courage to send an email, introduce yourself. And you will be surprised what kinds of responses you get back. And again, because you're transfer students, the window is tight, so you want to get on this now. I will tell you, having had a wife who sat on an admissions committee for the microbiology graduate group at UC Davis, they look at undergraduate research experience like it was gold. So get some.
I want to just add one more thing to Mike and Sam's point about undergraduate research. There is the Undergraduate Research Center on campus, URC, Undergraduate Research Center. And maybe you're a little shy, maybe you haven't done that yet, maybe you haven't talked to a faculty member yet. They will help you. They will help you figure out how to make that connection.
And conference.
And the conference, yes, they have an annual conference too. Yep.
Pro tip, don't email a professor and say, hey.
Yes.
That's step number one.
Good tip.
Step one, yeah.
Good tip.
Professor
Formal.
so-and-so, yeah.
Formal.
Salutation goes
Yeah.
a long way. All right, the last two questions in there. Yes, parchment.com for electronic transcripts. That's right, Aaron. Yes, parchment.com. Okay. Mark, do you want to talk about how a student can round out a 15-unit course load?
Yes. So I saw this question. I wanted to touch on this because it is important for a couple of reasons. So one, 15 units is the recommendation, and this number comes from sort of the standard number of units you would need to complete your degree in 2 years, in your case, to reach that 180 units, which is the minimum required for the college. Now, how you compile that is going to look different for most students. So my typical recommendation is going to ensure that you have 3 core classes. And so these are typically 4 to 5 unit classes, major related, maybe lower division courses for another area you're interested in, or just something that's fun, but really substantial. We do have a lot of 1, 2, 3 unit courses that are in some sense a little bit lighter in terms of topic. Some are first year seminars as well. So we offer 1 and 2 unit 4-credit seminars that are on very specific topics. There's a whole list of those on the first year seminar website. I think it's fys.ucdavis.edu. And so that's a good way to sort of round out your schedule by getting those sort of odd number of units. If you're looking for that maybe half a unit course, there's some good PE, physical education classes that you could take as well. So there's really a whole range of different classes. The other reason I wanted to touch on units is to point out one of the common things I see from transfer students, and that is, I have an AGETC, so I'm done with all of my prerequisites, so I just need to take all major classes, right? So I should just take 4 econ or 4 history or whatever classes. Don't do it, right? Even if you've satisfied everything, all your lower division prep, you have an AGETC, you're good to go, plan on building in some fun, lighter classes into your schedule. Keep it balanced. We really don't want you taking a huge load your first quarter. And I know there are some students who are like, oh, I've taken 18, 20 units at my community college. Again, as Mike mentioned, I was on a semester. Not a Davis you haven't. It's faster, it's harder, it takes a lot more. And so 15 units, sometimes 16 units is our recommendation for what your full load should look like. And that's assuming that you can devote that full 40 plus hours to school. So take it from us. We see it all the time, and Sam can speak to this from experience. Once you get here, it'll hit you right away how intense UC Davis can be. Don't underestimate us.
Definitely do not underestimate the quarter system for sure.
Yeah, one of the biggest traps I see my transfer students get into is that they come in extremely ambitious and extremely confident, and they try to load up on units their first quarter, and they're taking really sophisticated units that are very challenging. And believe me, I respect, much respect for your ambition, but be cognizant of the change in system, the change in environment, and hopefully sometime soon the change in geographic location.
I would also tag on that as well too. There are a lot of really fun, unique classes that Davis offers, like design of coffee, intro to beer and brewing, our nutrition
Stand-up
classes.
comedy.
Yes, our nutrition classes are amazing. And you may not get an opportunity to take these courses again. And I hear transfer students all the time tell me, oh, it's a waste of a class, or I don't need it, why would I take it? You need 180 units to graduate, and some majors in our college don't really have a large number of units. And so these classes, these general education, lower division classes, are a perfect way to, introduce yourself to a professor, meet new people, enjoy a new topic, something new to learn, and get towards your total units for graduation. So it's all a part of the experience, and take a lot of different classes that Davis has to offer if you feel like there's another area of interest that you'd like to explore.
Let's take, well, Mark, do you want to quickly answer the where they send their transcript question, or their IGETSI cert?
Yeah, so the IGETSI certification, if you have it completed and ready to go, should be sent directly to admissions at this point in time. If for any reason, because we've heard feedback that some institutions are not processing certain records, if there's a delay in IGETSI only, that can be sent at a later date. So I mentioned earlier, so if you're just joining us, a lot of students have IGETSI, but they never send the request or never request that copy. It's not required for admissions. So if it has to get sent later, that's totally fine. But it's definitely something you want to check in with our office and let us know that you have it, are expecting it, and make sure that that gets in as soon as possible.
Gotta click back into my Zoom window before I hit the space bar. Okay, let's take these last two questions. So I know you guys were just talking about the 15 units. That doesn't make a difference, right? If we're remote or if we're in person. How about one of you talk about what you've dealt with in some of your advising appointments with students who tried to overload because remote felt like they'd have more time? Anybody?
I can deal with that. I've seen some of my students as of late, because we are in a remote environment. They thought somehow they would have this enormous addition of time to take care of their classes, and it would be so much better. They've enrolled in 18 and some of them 20 units, and now they are beginning to feel the pressure. It was a very bad idea, and I understand the logic. It just feels right to take more because, location is eliminated, you're at home, that sort of thing. But being at home presents a whole different level of challenge, and so you've got to factor that in. I cannot encourage you to stay at or about 15 units your first quarter.
The other thing I would say is there are still only 24 hours in the day. That part hasn't changed. So just remember that time management and your availability and getting sleep and taking care of yourself, all of those things are things that you have to do as well too. I know that we're at home, so the location hasn't changed, but we still have only 24 hours in the day. There's only so much time to do these classes. And if you're applying the Carnegie rule, which you may or may not have heard yet, for every 1 unit of class, you should be spending, multiple hours outside of class. So you want to be thinking about that as well too, right? That every unit of class is an hour outside of class. So if you're taking 15 units, you're going to be multiplying that, by multiple hours and how many hours you're going to be studying. So
what I always tell my students in terms of like the modified Carnegie rule, and I've heard this reaffirmed by many faculty, is you should be doing about 3 or 4 hours per unit outside of class. And if you do the math, it comes out to about 40 hours a week.
It does, yeah, you are correct.
Yeah. All right, the last question we have is about study abroad, and I'm afraid that's a hard one to answer because we just don't know. There are even more factors than whether or not UC Davis will be in person or remote, because now we're talking about other countries and their own regulations and rules and health concerns and things. So that's a hard one to answer. Surely we'd love to see study abroad programs come back. Will they be back within the next 2 years? Again, if I were a betting person, I would say yes. I would say within the next 24 months, we will probably have abroad programs in place.
Hey, Mark.
Of course, Latia, yeah.
Sorry, this is Latia, the
Yep.
horse behind us. I actually received an email from the Study Abroad office today, and they're doing
great.
some virtual things.
Oh.
So I know that it's not the same, and the travel implications. And I think what they said is they're hoping to have all of their travel, regular programs back in 2021. But for the summer and for the foreseeable future, they're offering some virtual study abroad programs that they'd like students to participate in. So, just going to their website or reaching out to their office, they may be able to offer something in the meantime. And then hopefully next calendar year, even as transfer students, that, you'll still be here. So, maybe if that's next winter or spring that you're able to participate in something like that, or a summer in between your junior or senior year. But I know they're trying to do things in between.
Great. Thank you, Latia. And thank you for being back there answering questions yourself. Thanks to the rest of our panelists. Sam, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Mike, Mark, yes, thank you.
Had a great time. Thumbs up.
Thanks for joining us. Like I said, we're going to record this. We are recording this. It'll be linked on our website. We'll follow up with an email with a link to it as well. So, all right, you guys, congratulations. If you have any other questions, feel free to let us know. In the meantime, take good care. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Welcome all.
Bye.
Hope to see you soon.